We will be dealing with each application in the order of the agenda. And welcome back. This is our first public meeting in about 2 years. And I understand there may be a virtual meeting as well. Some people may not be comfortable still coming in to the office here. And so I'd like everyone's patience. And it is a statutory meeting. The committee will make their decisions following each application.
Johan Gunther
Anyone interested?
Is now joining.
Anyone interested in
Johan
the decision following each
Is now joining.
committee will make their decision following each application. Anyone interested in the decision must notify the Secretary Treasurer Sherry Mott. Please list the file number and your full name and mailing address, and the decisions are final if there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision. And I'm just going to ask Sherry, is there a paper at the back that we used to have them sign if they were interested in a decision? Oh, okay, just by email then. Anyone wishing to speak regarding an application will be given an opportunity to do so. And any member of the public wishing to speak, please state your name for the record, and I will let you know when it's time to speak. Planning staff will be presenting the reports, and they'll be present to answer any questions that the public or the committee members have. And I'm just going to do a roll call of our committee. I can see the ones that are here, but I'll find out if Lisa is there.
Hello.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. And Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Rudy. So the first order of business is to determine if any of the committee members have
Is
any
now joining.
interest when considering any of the applications we'll be dealing with today. Okay, so Adam has a declared conflict of interest for an application, and Sherry's made a note of that. All the committee members should have received and read the minutes of the May 18th meeting. And are there any errors or omissions? I'm hearing none. If not, I have a resolution before me to approve the minutes. Can I have a member move that recommendation? I've got Adam and a seconder. Got Alan. All in favor? Okay, Lisa?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor as well. So minutes are approved. Okay, the first application is file number BNPL 2022057. It's for a boundary adjustment, and the applicant is Norfolk Timber Management, Inc. And I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. So through the chair, is it okay if I do the first two applications together? Because the minor variance is contingent on the boundary adjustment.
Certainly.
Yeah. Thank you. So an application has been received to sever a parcel of land having a frontage of 31 meters, a width of 31 meters, a depth of 63.85 meters, having an area of 1,900 square meters, and retaining a parcel of approximately 19 hectares. As boundary adjustment, the severed lands will be added to the residential parcel immediately to the east, and the final lot size will be approximately 1.18 acres. Regarding the minor variance, an application has been received to recognize a deficiency created through consent application BNPL 2022-057 for an accessory structure to residential, requiring relief of 0.45 meters from the required maximum height of an accessory structure to a residential use in the agricultural zone of 8 meters to permit a height of 8.45 meters. So to begin, this application was previously deferred at the April Committee of Adjustment meeting at the request of the applicant. Staff's recommendations on both of the applications have not changed. For the reasons set out in the report, staff are not satisfied that the policies of the provincial policy statement nor the PPS are satisfied and are recommending refusal on the boundary adjustment. And therefore, we're recommending refusal on the minor variance to recognize the agricultural building, its height as a residential accessory structure. I can get into more details if the committee has questions, but as I mentioned, staff are recommending refusal on both the applications. So I am here for questions.
Thank you. Hey, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Any questions for staff? Is there an applicant or agent wishing to speak regarding this application?
There we go. Nice to be back after 2+ years. My name is Dave Rowe. I'm the agent for the applicant. What we have here really is 2 severances and a minor variance. We have an existing residential lot was severed some 35 years ago. On that lot is existing house, and the rear portion of that lot, roughly 1/3 of an acre or so, is cultivated farmland. Adjacent to that residential
Is
lot
now joining.
is an existing barn or shed, really a barn, I guess, and within a wooded area. So what we're proposing is to convey roughly the 1/3 acre of cultivated land, add it to the adjoining agricultural parcel, and then take a corresponding amount of acreage, including the barn, wooded area, and add it to the residential lot. So at the end of the day, the residential lot would be exactly the same size. We're taking off so much and we're adding on so much. In terms of benefit, certainly is a benefit to agriculture because roughly this 1/3 acre will continue to be cultivated. If the application were not successful, then my client, who actually owns both the farmland and the lot, if the lot is sold, then in all likelihood that person would build an accessory building on the rear portion, and you would lose that 1/3 acre. And on top of that, you'd probably lose more because it's very hard to farm around such tight quarters. So at the end of the day, I would dare say you probably lose a full acre or more farmland. The building itself, barn being added to the residential lot, meets the bylaw requirement in terms of footprint of the building. It's roughly 0.545 of a meter too high, but that really is very minimal. I see this really as a benefit to both the county in terms of support of its agricultural policies. The barn itself has not been used in conjunction with the farmland, I'm told, for somewhere around maybe 60 years. Some 30 or 40 years ago, the land was taken over. It's been a cash crop since then. So that barn serves no agricultural function and hasn't for probably 30 years. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Dave?
Actually, I have a question for Jennifer. The height. What was the issue with the height?
Okay.
So the issue with the height from the planning perspective from staff is that it's not appropriate for the boundary adjustment for an agricultural building to be added to a residential lot. So the requested relief to recognize the
Okay, are there any other questions for planning staff or the agent? Okay, just one moment. Okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak regarding this application? You can come to the podium and please state your name.
My name is Joe Catlack. I live next door to this property. This man just said that this barn is in a wooded area, is because it's not in a wooded area. It's out in the open in agriculture land. The barn's been there for years. It is set up for farm, like agricultural use. The farm has deteriorated since Dave Towns owned it. I'm waiting on a Chris O'Connor that has done water testing from Townsend Lumber that is leaking into our stream. And he's coming up to do a full investigation. I'm waiting for Chris Dunn, a drainage that Townsend Lumber, due to his poor management of the farm, is running across my farm, ruining my crops. I'm waiting for a Fritz Ellison,
Yep.
Enslin, a sewer drain lady, because I would ask if anybody could put up with a permit or a license application for the sewer system, because I smell sewer from that building. And I'd like to see if it was a licensed professional done, because that's what's leaking from Townsend Lumber that owned it before. That Dave's poor management that causing the leak that's going into our stream. And I just don't believe that as neighbors, as me and Steve in Dubai, we definitely don't want this happening.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any comments from committee members or any discussion? Is there any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, go ahead.
I would ask
Anna
Dave,
Rose.
Is now joining.
Dave, if you had the choice of a deferral or a refusal, which
Dan, the,
committee likes to work with applicants and
Is now exiting.
chance to do everything they can, so.
We deferred this before. The concerns and those matters being raised really are not relevant to this particular application, to be quite frank. At the end of the day, if the application is refused, the county will lose additional cultivated farmland. And I know the concerns that were raised at the last meeting were more relating to all-terrain vehicles and what have you. Again, those issues aren't relevant to this particular application. Thanks.
Okay, just a comment that I have is I do tend to agree with Dave on the fact that the drainage issues really they're separate from the actual boundary adjustment. You've spoken, we've heard what you've had to say. I'm giving you my opinion. A boundary adjustment isn't going to affect how he's managing his property. I feel that this is a benefit because the other severance for the back portion of the property will continue to be farmed. The land around the barn is probably not being actively cultivated. So I suspect what Dave had said in the future, if that property was sold and the boundary adjustment didn't happen, the back portion would become somebody's garage or shed or whatever. So I do feel that there's a benefit to this. And with regards to, I guess, septic issues, I don't know if there's a condition on the boundary adjustment that there be a septic evaluation on the house, but we could add that condition to try and address some of the concerns. Anyways, any other discussion? And we have a recommendation from staff to refuse this. And we'll deal with the severance first. So recommendation that it be refused. The other can actually, if we were to approve it, the other condition that I would suggest be added is that the boundary adjustment to follow, which is BNPL 2022059, be completed prior to this boundary adjustment, so that that one doesn't lapse and, you know, the barn get transferred and then they don't follow through with the second one. So I'd like to see a condition added for that. And it is there? Okay. Okay, any other discussion, or I need a motion from the committee?
I'll move approval with the condition of a septic evaluation.
Moved by Alan. Can I have a seconder for approval?
Rudy seconds.
Okay, thank you, Rudy. I'm just gonna write in here with condition added. Okay, all in favor of approval? Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, Rudy?
Yes.
And I'll just ask for a show of hands for the members present. Okay, that's unanimous, so that is approved. And then we'll just move on then to the minor variance, which is ANPL 2022058. And I need a motion for approval.
I'll move approval on that one too.
Okay, so Alan, and a seconder. I got Adam. Okay, all in favor? I'll ask Lisa.
Yes.
Okay, Rudy.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll show of hands for those present. Okay, that has been approved. And okay, the next application is file number BNPL 2022059, and I'll ask staff to give the report for that.
Thank you. So through the chair, this is the companion boundary adjustment that we just discussed. So an application has been received to sever a parcel of land having no frontage, a width of 45.72 meters, a depth of 42.83 meters, having an area of 1,900 square meters, and retaining a parcel of 2,900 square meters, approximately 0.7 acres of a parcel. As a boundary adjustment, severed lands will be added to the agricultural parcel immediately to the south, and the final lot size will be approximately 9.5 hectares or 48.5 acres. So staff have reviewed the proposed boundary adjustment, and we are confident that this boundary adjustment is consistent with the policies of the PPS, the official plan, and meets the intent of the zoning. So we are recommending approval subject to.
All right, we'll be back soon.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for staff? Okay, and is there any member of the public that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. And the agent has nothing to add. Okay, so we have a recommendation for approval, and I'll ask a member of the committee to move that recommendation. I got Adam and a seconder. Alan.
Rudy seconds.
Oh, I got Alan. Thanks, Rudy.
That's
Okay.
fine.
All in favor, Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, Lisa,
Yes.
and a show of hands for those present. Okay, that application is approved. The next application is file number BNPL 2022131 for a boundary adjustment. And the applicant is Henry and Mary Jane Frystack, and I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. So through the chair, we've received an application to sever a parcel having no frontage, any regular width of approximately 30.48 meters and a regular depth of approximately 18.68 meters, having an area of approximately 570 square meters, and retaining a parcel of approximately 71.5 acres as a boundary adjustment. Lands will be added to an existing residential parcel located immediately to the east with the address of 29 Robinson Road. And the final lot size will be approximately 1,500 square meters. So staff again have reviewed the application against the policies of the provincial policy statement and official plan and zoning bylaw. The property is designated urban residential and it is zoned R1. Staff are confident that the policies of the official plan regarding boundary adjustment are satisfied and recommend approval subject to the attached conditions. That being said, after discussion with the agent, staff are okay with amending condition 3 as presented in the staff report. The applicant's agent has identified some concerns with the way that the condition is crafted. So we've agreed to switching out this condition for one that reflects something along the lines of that letter of undertaking from the applicant's solicitor, confirming that the two parcels will be merged on title, be submitted, replacing condition number 3. Is that right? And subject to that change, staff will are still recommending approval subject to that change in the condition.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Okay, and is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? And is there an applicant or agent that wishes to add any additional information?
Good afternoon, through the chair, Nathan Colmay, Brimage Law Group. I'm the agent for the applicants and just wanted to thank staff for their work and preparing the report and helping us through, and thank you for your time.
Okay, we have a recommendation for approval, and is there a member of the committee that wants to move that recommendation with the amended condition for number 3, that the solicitor provide an undertaking ensuring that the severed parcels merge with the residential parcel at 29 Robinson Road? Okay, I got Alan and a seconder, Adam. All in favor of approval? Lisa
Yes.
and Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and a show of hands. Hey, that application is approved. Next application is file number BNPL 2022132. And the applicant is Carol Ann Snow, and it's for a severance. And I'll stop to give the report.
Through the chair, an application has been received to facilitate a correction of title as a result of a Planning Act infringement in regards to a previous consent to sever when the original lot was created. So planning staff, in consultation with solicitor, are confident that the application in front of you is consistent with the relevant sections of the Planning Act. We are confident that the official plan permits the correction of title in this manner, and we are recommending approval of the validation certificate subject to the 4 conditions at the back of the report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Oh, okay, I just had one question. So it looks like the parcel goes over that unopened road allowance. Is that something that should be addressed?
It's my understanding that the parcel, there was a our plan completed and that the parcel fabric is actually reflective of the intended lot size. So our development engineering department didn't flag that that should be reduced. So I
Okay,
think it's okay.
thank you. Any other questions for planning staff? Okay, and is there any member of the public that wishes to speak regarding this application?
Good evening. Just for the record, it's Harms, initial M. I'm counsel for the applicant. I don't have anything really to add except that if there were any other further questions, I'd be available with to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, staff are recommending approval. Can I have a member of the committee move that recommendation?
Lisa
Yes,
moves
by
to
Alan.
approve.
And a
Or
seconder?
Lisa?
Lisa, all right, thanks, Lisa. Okay, all in favor of approval. Lisa,
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and a show of hands for the present. That application is approved. Next application is file number BNPL 2022111 for a boundary adjustment, and it's Marcia and Ron Haverkamp, and I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage approximately of 99 meters, a width of 100 meters, a depth of 61 meters, and having an area of 2,589 square meters, or 0.64 acres, and retain a parcel having an area of 18.74 hectares as a boundary adjustment. Plans to be added to the existing lot located immediately adjacent to the east of the subject lands, resulting in a final lot size of 1.12 hectares or 2.77 acres. The subject lands are located west of the intersection of Concession 6 Townsend and Villanova Road and designated as zoned agricultural. The lands to be retained are occupied by actively cultivated farmland. The lands to be severed are occupied by a man-made pond, which is stocked with fish. And a site visit by staff determined there was also a pump house, which the owner has indicated pulls water to fill the pond from a well located on the lands to benefit. And the lands to benefit are occupied by a single detached dwelling, a swimming pool, and 3 accessory structures. To give some context, historically, the lands to benefit were severed in around 1994, and were also the subject of a zoning bylaw amendment, which permitted an increased usable floor area of 620 square meters for accessory structures, and the staff report for that application just identified the pond on the lands to be retained as an irrigation pond. The agent has identified that the reasons for the severance application are to address an encroachment of the septic system from the lands to benefit, clear confusion on frontage and boundaries between both lots, increase the amount of tilled land on the lands to be retained, and retain the use of the pond as a wildlife habitat. So regarding policy, the PPS identifies that lot adjustments in prime agricultural areas may be permitted for legal or technical reasons, which are defined as severances for purposes such as easements, correction of deeds, quit claims, and minor boundary adjustments. So it's the opinion of staff that while a historical encroachment of a septic system is definitely a valid technical reason, there's a lack of sufficient supporting material that demonstrates this encroachment was created at the time of the initial severance in 1994. That was included at the time of submission. Just to address the other reasons for the severance, there are a number of lots that do front onto the same road as a farm, and we don't think that there's any confusion as to the boundaries of lots. And then retaining the use of a man-made pond as wildlife habitat does not satisfy, in our opinion, the definition of a technical or legal reason. So there are a number of official plan policies highlighted in more length in my report, which speak to the importance of protecting prime agricultural land from incompatible uses and uses which unnecessarily take this land out of production. So this adjustment would have the effect of increasing a residential lot, which is already over 2 acres. And since a pond occupies the majority of these lands, we do acknowledge they're not actively being used for agricultural production, but it's the opinion of staff that they have the potential to be used to irrigate the agricultural parcel and contribute to the long-term viability of the farm. Regarding the zoning bylaw, the application doesn't create or address any deficiencies, but it does have the effect of further reducing the lot area of an agricultural parcel already deficient in the minimum lot size, 40 hectares. And while this is not a surplus farm severance, we just kind of want to highlight that the size of this parcel to be severed, which is about 2,500 square meters to be added through the adjustment, exceeds what we define as a minimum lot area for lots created by surplus. So it just kind of, for this reason, we don't really consider it to be a minor boundary adjustment. So for these reasons, we don't believe the proposal does not conform to the PPS and official plan or meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, and therefore recommend refusal. But we do like to note that we recognize an encroaching septic system as a technical reason. So we're open to supporting an alternative lot configuration, which would reduce the final boundary adjustment, but also meet Ontario Building Code requirements for septic systems. So we've prepared an alternative set of conditions if there is amenability by the agent to that option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for planning staff?
Used for irrigation.
Sorry, technical difficulties. It's our understanding that it's not being used for irrigation currently. So the water pulls from the lands to benefit to fill it, and it's being stocked by fish for personal use for the lands to benefit. But just noting in the zoning bylaw, there may have historically been a use associated with irrigation for the retained lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for planning staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? I'll just ask you to turn the mic on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Sullivan with Land Pro Planning Solutions. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I want to say the staff report is very well written and very thorough. Start with that. I wasn't aware of the early, and thank you for putting the PowerPoint up. It's helpful. I wasn't aware of the 1994 severance and the sort of the rezoning of the property. That's good to know about that. What I would say is that was previous. Today, as I understand that the property has been used for many years, but the pond has been used for many years as a recreational use. So the pond could be used for irrigation if desired by a future applicant or by a future property owner. I don't consider this removal of active agricultural lands. Technically, there is still access to the lands to the east of this. Actually, if I can have the next slide. So I'll backtrack to record my slide for a moment. This is a simple application. Unfortunately, what's happened is I think the report has taken a bit of a speculative tone on what could be done in the future with the property in terms of it's being used for agricultural purposes again. Can I have the next slide, please? There's the existing versus the proposed. Just wanted to highlight that for the committee's benefit. We have the next slide. There's the one I want to go into a little bit, if I may, Madam Chair. The existing lot is the one on the right-hand side. The pond is on the left side. We tried to design the pond or design that section to align with the natural tree line that's there, and to address, as Jaeger was saying, about the septic system in the middle part. We tried to, and we want to include that, and we don't want to have that encroaching anymore. The pond has been used historically. The applicant is here, Mr. Haverkamp, and he understands from the previous use, from the previous owner of the property, it was used for recreational purposes. It is fed by a well from the house, as was noted already. It is stocked annually with fish. It is used for recreational purposes. And based on my understanding of working on other such applications, I don't think that can be used for agricultural purposes. Technically, I suppose a line can be put out there to an irrigation system, but I would suggest strongly that the lands to the east of the house would be a place for an ideal place for a new pond should an owner in the future decide to use that for that purpose. So the size, the design is dug. I don't know how deep it is, but I suspect not very deep. And location, which has got the tree line, just you can't crop the land there. The only purpose it has is for irrigation. And my understanding is from my client and the previous owner, anecdotal evidence from the previous owner, it was not used for that purpose. I can't speak to when the zoning bylaw was passed for this, the amendment was passed, but I suspect that has been used for irrigation for a number of years. So there's an issue here we have that staff identified that they consider to be part of farm infrastructure. Maybe that was originally the case. It's expanded. It's morphed since then. There's no intent by my client to use it for agricultural purposes. My client and his wife own the house. His wife owns the property. So it is under separate ownership. The one other angle I wanted to mention was the 2,000 square meters, the severance. That is an official plan policy, which was Ms. Yeager correctly identified. I would note that's a minimum, and that I believe that my report, I justified a larger lot size. So there's a simple request to look, if I can have the next slide, please. It's a simple request to include the septic and the pond on the residential lot, so the whole thing can be treated as one as residential purposes. It resolves a future legal issue, as Ms. Yeager's already mentioned, which is the easement, the need for an easement on that. But I don't think the easement is required because the boundary adjustment will address that. And it's not a loss of agricultural infrastructure, in my opinion. It's separate. It will clearly separate agricultural and residential uses. And we are open to discussing alternatives with staff, but I believe this is appropriate. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the agent? Okay, no questions. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, we have a
Question for you, Mike. The septic, excuse me, how long has that septic been in place where it is? It just as long as we have whatever, I guess.
So if we put the slide back up that shows the septic, it's in the middle of the middle. It's on the lot line currently. I don't know if it's working. A condition of severance we assume would be to confirm it works and to repair it if required. There it is, the round ellipse or the blue ellipse in the center.
okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, we have a recommendation before us for refusal. I have a member of the committee either move that or have a recommendation. Marcel?
Sorry. I would recommend that we accept this proposal.
Dan DeYoung.
I'm just thinking
Is
that,
now joining.
what are we going to do with this pond if it's not adjoined to this house? Is it going to be a liability for somebody that lives in the house to worry about somebody's going to go into the pond? I think that's a liability issue that we
Right.
could address by having this all in one lot, or one application we accepted. So I'm open up to suggestions. If that's agreeable, I would accept this.
Okay, so Marcel's making a recommendation for approval. And can I have a seconder? Oh, sorry, Adam.
Well, I don't think I can speak now because there's a motion on the floor, right? No, it has. You can't just interrupt his motion.
We need a seconder. So
Okay.
Alan will second it.
Okay,
Now
so
we can discuss it.
yeah, so I guess the quote, we've heard that staff has an alternative. And we've heard that the agent is open to the alternative. Do we not want to defer and give them a chance to sort that out? I mean, if there's, we can't, not, I mean, I don't know what is your plan succinct enough that it's worth presenting here, or is that like a long technical thing that we should do here?
Thank you. To put it succinctly, our recommended alternative option is to address the encroachment. So enough room to make sure that the septic system is within the lot lines of the residential parcel and meets Ontario Building Code requirements, but retain the pond for the retained land. So keep it with the farm, and then an additional condition would be to drill a well to ensure that it can be used as a piece of infrastructure for the farm should future owners want to use it as that piece of infrastructure.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second to approve. Any other discussion on this? No, okay.
Through
All
the
in
chair,
favor of-
this is Lisa here. Can I for
Okay.
a second?
Yeah.
I think I have to be in agreement there. I'm just not sure what that pond would be used for if it was not added on to this dwelling area. It doesn't sound like it has ever been used for the farm, so I have to be in agreement with the passing this as well, please.
Thank you. And just a comment from me, I never really thought about it, but Marcel made a good point about liability issues if it doesn't go with the house. So all in favor of approval? Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and a show of hands for those here. Okay, that application is approved, subject to the amended conditions. Or these, no, those weren't related to this, sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify, the amended conditions would be attached to that proposed solution, which
Okay.
sounds like committee, but there is a list of conditions for the
Okay.
motion that's been approved
Okay,
for the original proposal.
thank you, sorry for the confusion. Okay. The next application is for a severance. File number is BNPL 2022116, and the applicant is Skylar Farms. And I'll ask staff to give the report.
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, I know I try to keep my presentations brief, but this one might be a bit longer than normal. And I think it'll just speak to how I kind of struggled with analyzing the application. So an application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of 50.2 meters, a depth of 82.2 meters, a width of 50.2 meters, and having an area of 4,000 square meters as the creation of a new lot in the agricultural zone. As part of this application, the applicants are proposing to merge an existing lot into the surrounding agricultural parcel. Sort of what we've dubbed in Norfolk County as swapping the lots. So it is kind of one of those oldies but a goodies. So just for some context, Norfolk County typically doesn't support these applications. In this particular instance, there has been an official plan amendment on the property, which was approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal. So this property is now subject to a special policy area which permits the severance of one residential lot. It is the wording of that actual amendment that made me struggle with this application more than normal. And the actual decision that was passed by the OLT did not provide much clarity. So I will, again, apologize for the length of my presentation, but there are sort of a lot of moving parts here. So the report is lengthy because I went through every step of the planning process. I've identified the sections of the Planning Act that I feel are relevant for this application. The provincial policy statement still applies to the severance application. As we're aware, there's pretty clear policy on the PPS to speak to how residential lots can be created in an agricultural area. We know them well. We talk about them every month. So it's the surplus farm dwelling severance, subject to farm consolidation. So the fact that to facilitate this lot swap, essentially we would have to create a vacant residential lot, in my professional opinion, does not meet the test of the planning of the provincial policy statement. So part of the reason and for the recommendation is because I don't feel that it meets the tests laid out in the PPS. Then we move to the official plan. So as I've mentioned, there is a special policy area subject to this property. Again, based on the wording of that policy area, it doesn't provide direction to disregard the other policies of the official plan. It says one residential severance is permitted. It doesn't say notwithstanding sections of 9 point, and I'm going to get it wrong, but the consent policies, a vacant residential lot is permitted. So in my assessment of the official plan, along with all of the other policies that speak to agriculture, and because where the proposed lot is located within a woodlot, I assessed the forestry policies as well, and the policies regarding our natural heritage system, which also encourage us not to sever lots in the natural heritage system. So after my review, my agonizing review of the official plan, I came to the determination that the proposed severance is not consistent with the OP. And again, the decision, which I've attached to the report issued by the OLT, referenced, I guess, I wasn't part of that hearing, so I can't speak to it, but some of the reference points in the decision were pretty clear in that there was a distinction made at that hearing that the official plan application was considerably different than an analysis of a consent application. So at the end of the day, I believe the OLT member, felt that because it wasn't a consent application, the proposal was consistent with the provincial policy statement and the direction of the official plan. Now that we have a consent application, as I mentioned, because the decision and the corresponding official plan amendment wasn't specific enough to say, notwithstanding the requirement for a surplus farm dwelling, a severance would be permitted. I think I mentioned this already, but staff don't feel that the policies of the official plan are being achieved in this particular application. I guess you guys have read the report, but one of the other things I just want to mention is we've had a number of applications similar to this in the past, and there are two directly related to Norfolk County, actually, decisions from the OMB regarding what I refer to as lot swap applications. And in those decisions, the chair and the member both recognize that the creation of the vacant lot in the agricultural area is not consistent with the respective policy of the PPS, and refused both of the appeals in those cases. And so we do have some direction from the tribunal in regards to how we should apply that policy of the PPS. So again, that all kind of framed how I thought about the application and my recommendation. And I've already said too much, but at the end of the day, planning staff cannot support this application and have recommended refusal.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for planning staff?
Is this, there's been precedents already set, correct?
So through the chair, there's actually been precedent set in both, to be fair, in both sort of instances. And actually this lot is a particularly good example, to be honest. So I think I included also as part of this application, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but so zoom in here. So back in, I think it was 2012, Skylar Farms actually applied for a lot swap on this particular farm. And so this, if my cursor, so this oddly shaped parcel. Is about 2 acres in size. And so back in 2012, the applicants applied for a lot swap to create the existing 2-acre parcel that's subject of this application. And it was approved by committee. It was approved by the Committee of Adjustment. Yeah. So then after that, we had the 2 other applications for lot swaps. One of them was also for Schuyler Farms and one of them was for Mr. and Mrs. Stenkleck, also proposing lot swaps. And both of those applications were refused by the OLT or OMB back in the day. So again, we have kind of a mixed bag here, but the most recent decisions have been. And then one thing I'll also mention, one of the concerns that planning staff often have and still have regarding these types of applications is the fact that the original lot that's being proposed to be merged back into the farm, you don't need a planning application to do that. The farmers can do that themselves. They don't need to do that as part of a planning application. And actually, this is an example of where the lot that was originally proposed to be merged back into the farm to create this 2-acre parcel that's now being proposed to become a 1-acre parcel wasn't merged back into the farm. So they actually have 2 2-acre parcels that have been severed from the farm. So again, it's always a concern if we're and this is why we kind of debate conditions and try to make sure that the conditions are correct, to make sure that the intent is there and that things are merged. So there is always that concern as well, that the conditions aren't satisfied in a way that the original intent of the application was, and then we end up in a situation where vacant residential lots are created in the agricultural area. So just as an aside, that is also a concern. And this is actually an example of that happening. So I guess I'll leave it there unless there's any other questions.
Thank you. Any other questions for planning staff? Okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak regarding this application?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Nick Sullivan with Land Pro, representing Schuyler Farms. I want to start off by saying the level of effort put in by Ms. Caterino in this file is exceptional. It's great. I understand the struggle she had putting this together. I certainly share that. This is a very atypical file. So I just want to commend her on putting this report together. I don't agree with her recommendation, but I commend the level of effort. So this application began a number of years ago. And what I'll say is that the application before the committee today is consistent with what LPAT approved earlier. I can just add some to that. The applicant, Schuyler Farms, requested, it was a simple request, you would think, to take 2 acres of active farmland and replace it with 1 acre of woodland. So a 2 acre down to 1 acre net gain. That was one of the things that the LPAT, the decision, spoke to. It was a net gain for agriculture. What I also like to add to Ms. Caterino's presentation is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing was the primary appellant on this file. And once LPAT made the decision in favor of the application, creating the special policy area, Municipal Affairs and Housing appealed that decision and went to what's called an internal review of it. So the local planning appeals tribunal at that time reviewed the decision to make sure it was okay, that it stood the acid test, if you will. And they came back and said it did. It was okay. And I share Ms. Caterino's concern about merging the lot, about creating an extra lot, which is clearly against the PPS. What I would say, Madam Chair, to that is that a condition of severance, or if my client were to merge the property today, the only way they could get another severance off this is if they had a house on that property or a house elsewhere. That's the only clear way through the PPS and the Norfolk County official plan that you can sever is a surplus farm dwelling. I don't think that opportunity exists in this case. So that's an answer to that. They don't want to lose that opportunity, so they had to go for the lot swap approach. Unfortunately, my client can't be here tonight, but the solicitor, Mr. Kalamaya, was on this file and can provide additional legal context once I'm done, if that's of any help to the committee. So what I'm trying to get to, Madam Chair, is that LPAT made a decision to support the official plan amendment for this property. That resulted in a special policy area designated for just this property, which to me, if you look at the LPAT presentation or the LPAT decision, clearly says one lot is possible. We've remained consistent in what we've asked LPAT as well as what we're asking the committee. So this just finishes off something that has gone through, I guess you could say, an LPAT decision as well as an internal review to make sure it all functions properly. To me, this is, I understand Ms. Catarino's concerns. The LPAT decision enforces OPA 126 of the county official plan, which is the special policy area. And what I'm trying to say from that is, aside from the language that is being requested, which is notwithstanding, a special policy area to me, in other applications I deal with, is the first thing you look at. They didn't say it notwithstanding everything else. We are reducing the size of the lot. We are taking it out of agriculture. It satisfies, in my view, the other criteria for creation of a lot. And the way to address the merging of the lot, I think the only way to address the PPS in terms of lot creation is to have a condition on the severance decision saying that that lot will be merged with the neighboring property, which will be, to me, it's a legal issue. It's an administrative one as well. And once that's done, only once that's done, can the new lot be created. But that would be a chain of events that would happen with the new lot being created at the end. I would note that an environmental impact study was completed by a qualified biologist for the proposed lot, and they confirmed that it was fine. I believe there's species of risk still to be looked at. That could be a condition of approval as well, that be looked at. What I'm trying to say, Madam Chair, is that OPA 126, in my view, deems this application to conform with the PPS, deems this application to be consistent with the PPS, to conform with the Norfolk County official plan, and the lot has been designed to meet the county's severance policies. And I think that's all I have. So, Nathan, if you'd like to speak to it, but thank you for the moment, and any questions from the committee.
My question would be, you mentioned a merge condition. Can you just give me a little more detail on that?
Thank you. So the concept would be to take the existing lot, and Mr. Kalamaya can speak to this. It's a legal land titles issue, that the lot would be merged. So Scholar Farms or whoever owns the land adjacent to this lot would effectively buy that lot. And my understanding as a planner, to be confirmed by our legal support, is as soon as the owners of adjacent lands are the same, the lot automatically merges, and he could take extra protection if required to make sure they merge. But the new lot could not be created until that occurred.
Okay, go ahead.
Double trouble. Thank you. Through the chair, so just to give you some background, I acted for Scholar Farms as its counsel on the appeal. So we went through a couple of days of like full-blown litigation to get to the approval of OPA 126. You had me acting for Scholar Farms. You had at various points 2 lawyers acting for the ministry. So all of these issues were thoroughly discussed. And then as Mr. Sullivan mentioned, the ministry appealed it from there, and even upon review, it was approved. So at the end of the day, we have to ask, well, what's better for agriculture? What really meets the spirit and the intent of our policy framework? So you have 2 acres that is under active cherry production. So you have cherry trees in the 2 acres, and you have the 1 acre that isn't. So at the end of the day, our proposal is better for agriculture. And as far as the merger is concerned, what the end result would be is that the existing 2 acres would no longer exist. It would just form part and parcel of the abutting farm. So really, so physically there would be no difference. You look at it, it's, well, I see 2 acres of cherry trees surrounded by more cherry trees, and it would just be the legal boundary would change.
I have a question for you. So the original lot swap, where planning staff have indicated when the first 2 acre parcel was created and it was swapped for another 2 acre parcel. And it appears staff believes that that's still a lot of record. Is that lot merged, like, or not merged with?
I can't speak to that. I don't know the history of those parcels. I'd be happy to look into it, but I can't speak to whether or not a lot should have been merged and wasn't merged. But all we're saying is a simple exchange of 2 acres that are under active production for.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying today. I'm just asking about this. So, and the other question I have is, so if the ownership is in the same name, then it's automatically merged? That I'm talking about the historical lot, like the original 2 acre swap.
It depends. So if you're say from when people typically think of merger, so let's say you have just 2 farms that are side by side and then they have the same ownership, well, they merge. It gets more complicated when you deal with lots that have been the subject of a consent. It depends on the type of consent. There are ones where, you know, the age-old adage, once a lot, always a lot, and to merge a lot that's subject of a fuller's consent, you'd have to disrupt the consent itself by the classic 1 foot square transfer to the municipality. So when you're dealing with lots that were the subject of a consent, depending on the type of consent, it wouldn't necessarily automatically merge if the ownership is the same. So it depends on the type of consent.
Okay. And so a question for, I guess, all of you. The conditions that we have attached to this, does that ensure that this 2 acre parcel will merge?
I apologize. I wasn't even planning to speak to this application. I just happened to be here. So
This was not planned as a coincidence.
yeah, the transfer of the 1 foot square would disrupt the 2 acre parcel, and you know, with the, you know, if Skylar Farms owns the farm and Skylar Farm owns the 2 acres and that 1 foot square is transferred, yes, that would result in a merger of the 2 acres less the 1 foot square into the wider farm. Yes.
Okay. Do we know whether Skylar Farms owns both?
I don't know offhand. If I had a computer, I could probably look it up, but no, I don't know offhand. I would assume so, yeah.
The agent, do you know?
I don't actually, Madam Chair. I do know that Norfolk Cherry Farms, which was the applicant, is now part of Skylar Farms. And so, but I can't speak to that. I'm sure Mr. Skylar could confirm it with staff.
I'm gonna ask Jennifer.
So through the chair, the ownership has always been, I guess, part of the reason why this application has taken so long to come to committee. So originally when it was submitted, the ownership was in Norfolk Cherry ownership. As I was reviewing for completeness, the ownership changed to Skylar Farms. The 2 acre parcel is owned by Skylar Farms and Max Skylar. So currently they're not in the same ownership. They're owned by the same farming operation as by definition, but they're not in the same ownership. And one thing I wanted to mention, if we are just solely going by relying on the ownership and this 1 foot square transfer, then to make it abundantly clear, we should probably add a condition that says solicitor needs to confirm merger of the lots. And for complete transparency, when I drafted these conditions, I actually included the roll numbers for the 2 acre parcel subject to this application being merged back into the farm, and also the previous 2-acre parcel that was supposed to merge when the other lot swap happened. So just for complete transparency, oops, excuse me, both of those roll numbers have been identified in the conditions, Nathan, since you haven't had a chance to look at them. So they are there.
Through the chair, if I may, we're agreeable to a condition that requires an undertaking from whichever solicitor, whether it's me or a different lawyer with my firm, to confirm that the 2-acre parcel, regardless of what the ownership is and what it presently is, that at the end of the day, that it would be merged into the wider farm.
So how do I best word that then if I'm adding the condition? The solicitor agrees to an undertaking.
So, sorry, so Nathan, condition number 5, does that cover what we're talking about? In this case, I know maybe in the previous one it didn't, but.
Because we would have to complete the merger of the farm and the 2-acre parcel prior to consent for this one being issued. So yeah, that would make sense.
So that one makes, so we don't need to add a condition?
Don't believe so, no, to the chair.
Okay. Marcel?
I have one more question. So this wooded area, has this been approved as well? Already to have a separate lot there?
Through the chair, could you repeat the question?
Yes, this wooded area that they're gonna swap over, has that been approved by the pre-commission, or are this really gonna be a lot? Is this a building lot, or is this just a wooded lot?
Thank you. Through the chair, an EIS, an environmental impact study by a biobiologist, was completed to say it was okay. That said, I don't believe in Ms. Catarino's report. I don't believe that NEAC has reviewed it or has signed off. So I can't speak to that.
Thank you. And Jennifer, go ahead.
So through the chair, NEAC is currently not meeting, so they haven't reviewed the EIS. That's why I included the comments previously from, I think it was 2019, when NEAC had reviewed the original EIS, but did note that we did receive an update. But I don't believe, based on my understanding of the update, that the original comments from NEAC were addressed, but an EIS was completed and submitted as part of the application.
Okay, any other questions from the committee or comments? No, okay. Okay, so I just a comment from me. I see that there was a decision made by the, whatever it's called, the former OMB, the land tribunal now. Yeah, and then that decision was reviewed, I guess, and they upheld it, and it basically says, having considered the evidence and submissions, that it represents good planning. And I have to agree with that. I believe that putting 2 acres back in and moving that 1 acre makes sense to me. I understand staff's predicament they're in with the provincial policy. And I just feel that the provincial policy is a little short-sighted because it doesn't recognize like scenarios that actually would be a benefit to agriculture, similar to this one. So I think it's a good decision, and I'm prepared to support the application. And I don't know if any other committee members have anything to add.
Lisa would be willing to second it as well. I agree with what you're saying, Chair.
I would support the application also, subject to the merge condition that you stated earlier. I think what LPAT or the OMB or whoever they're calling themselves, whatever this week, have sent a message. It'd be nice if they tightened up their language a little bit to make it a little easier for the planning department to interpret the, their rules and their regulations and their decisions. So I'll move that.
Okay, so moved by Alan for approval, seconded by
Lisa.
Okay, got Lisa. That's okay. Okay, and your motion is to approve subject to the merger. Okay. It's in there, but I'm just adding it so it's clear. Okay, so all in favor, Lisa,
Yes.
Rudy,
Yes.
okay, and a show of hands for those here. Okay, so that application is approved.
The chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next application is file number ANPL 2022125. It's for a minor variance and it's Villages of Waterford. And I'll ask staff to give that report.
Thank you. So through the chair, an application has been received to recognize the deficiency requiring relief of zoning bylaw section 4.2.5A to permit a minimum of 40% of the front yard be maintained as landscaped open space for three single detached dwelling lots, and the plan and lot numbers are listed there, and 40% for semi-detached dwellings, and again, the lots are listed in the description, within the Villages of Waterford subdivision to allow the expansion of the parking area within the front yard. So essentially what's happened from this development is a reduced road width was approved when the subdivision was originally approved by council. And over time, I guess the density of the proposed subdivision has increased, but the road width was never addressed. So I guess what's happening now is there's a bit of a tight squeeze for emergency vehicles to get through the subdivision. So the developer has requested a minor variance to permit increased width for driveways to permit more cars to be parked in the actual driveways rather than the streets. So planning staff have assessed the request. We believe it's consistent with the official plan. It is minor in nature, although I'm normally a stickler for the landscape open space, but I also love firefighters. So we are recommending approval of the minor variance.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Just remind you to turn the mic on and please state your name.
Sorry about that. I don't have my glasses. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Serena. I am the homeowner of 31 Amber Street in Waterford. I've lived here since December of 2020, and I purchased this property with the common expectation that parking would be available on my street and within close proximity of my house. I'm here to express my personal objection to the proposal of the no parking whatsoever on Amber Street, and I'm requesting a deferral of this proposal while we can explore other options that are more inclusive for our community. So I just want to give you guys like a little bit of a background story before I go into what my personal recommendations would be. So on February 5th of 2022, this past February, I was made aware of a parking problem on Amber Street due to the narrowness of the street. I believe that this is a result of poor planning. The developer, Mrs. Angela O'Hara, knocked on my door and advised my partner and I that there was an incident days before where an ambulance entered Amber Street off of Old Highway 24 and then couldn't get through our subdivision because our pickup truck was parked in front of our house and our neighbor's van was parked across the road from our truck, the opposite side of the street. Mrs. O'Hara stated that the homeowner was dying and that it was our fault because that homeowner received delayed medical assistance due to our vehicle being parked on the road. This interaction was fully captured on my home video, audio, and surveillance system. It's available for your review if there's any questions on the legitimacy of that accusation. So firstly, it should be noted that I did contact the various emergency services of Norfolk County and confirm that this did not happen. In fact, there were no calls for service involving EMS that week in the Villages of Waterford. And secondly, on March 8th, I was in contact with Jim Milson, the supervisor of Norfolk by law enforcement, who confirmed in writing that, to quote, the conversation really started when the fire department decided to bring a truck through for an inspection and advised staff that they had a difficult time negotiating the roadways due to the vehicles being parked on both sides of the street, which led by law to speak with the developer. So there was no incident of a homeowner dying as a result of my pickup truck being parked on the road as a result of the narrowness of the street. That did not happen. So I am unimpressed and I feel disrespected by that fabrication they made about a neighbor dying and how the developers elected to put blame on the homeowners rather than the road narrowness caused by poor community planning. This is not the fault of the homeowners. I feel that the developer's intention was to guilt trip us into parking elsewhere. And it should be noted that I personally am a first responder. And regardless of my displeasure with the lie I was told, I would never want to interfere with the duties of my peers. I have a strong affinity for my community and public safety as a whole. So therefore, I did ask Mrs. O'Hara that day several times on my porch where she would like us to park instead. I was open to an alternative suggestion if not available to park in front of my home. She could not provide any alternatives. She ended the conversation and vacated the premise.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I need to get through the last part if it's okay. I'm just going to get to my.
Okay, we have a full
suggestions.
agenda tonight, so
Okay.
very quickly.
Okay.
You've got 1 minute.
No problem. So it should be noted that there's no parking available on the side of Old Highway 24. The developer blocked off the second portion of Amber Street to traffic. There's often nowhere for us to park on Gibbons or Beamer due to those citizens' vehicles being in place on those two streets. We don't feel comfortable having our vehicles parked out of range of our surveillance cameras due to a high number of thefts from vehicles in the neighborhood this year alone. And as such, we continue to park our truck in front of our house. But over the course of the last several months, we video documented several vehicles passing through Amber with ease. That includes Norfolk disposal trucks, concrete booms, landscape trucks with 20-foot trailers attached, pickup trucks, pulling snowmobile trailers and boats, and ironically an ambulance. It's all on video. And it should be noted that there is another entrance to the subdivision just north of Amber Street. However, the developers barricaded that roadway. So if we are concerned about the response time of emergency services, why would we block the alternate entrance to an already restricted neighborhood? So just to get to my final conclusion, the letter that we received in the mail from the developers in the county is that the developer's solution to their poor planning is to make homeowners pay for the widening of their driveways and sacrifice our green space that's already very limited. If you drive down Amber Street, our lawns are a little pie slice. We are also supposed to put 2 trees on. There's no room to put 2 trees on if we sacrifice our green space for pavement. So we as homeowners also would have to front a portion of that cost. So we think that's unfair. We feel that if we aren't allowed to park in front of our homes, like the other residents on the neighboring streets, Beamer and Gibbons, the developer should be responsible for the cost of the driveway expansions, as this is a solution to their problem that they caused. So the last points are that we purchased these homes with the common expectation that road parking would be available, as observed in most of Waterford's subdivisions. There was no disclosure at the time of sale that road parking would be prohibited. If we knew this, we may have elected to purchase the property elsewhere. Strict no parking on any side of Amber Street at any given time will affect the resale of our homes and renter interest for those that have tenants. And prohibiting parking on Amber Street as a whole is not considerate of the disabled or pregnant citizens of our street, as well as families with young children. It'll force our most vulnerable neighbors to walk lengthy distances, even more problematic during adverse weather conditions. There's no guarantee that these citizens or our guests will secure parking on the road on the closer end of Beamer. Theoretically, they may have to walk up to half a kilometer for parking. Okay. So my final conclusions are that we change Amber Street to alternating side parking instead of prohibiting it as a whole. So like depending on the days of the week, you could park on this side, but not that side. I think that's a fair compromise. Second, there's an empty lot directly beside 39 Amber Street. We feel it should be put back through reconsideration for a public parking lot offered for the citizens of the semis that are being given restricted parking.
Okay. All right.
Instead of sacrificing our grass.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've got the gist of what you're saying.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll get you. Okay, Alan has a question.
Planning. These public streets or are they internal condominium type roads?
Through the chair, these are public streets.
Any other questions for planning staff? Okay. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? I'm just gonna ask if you just add new information. Okay, thank you.
So Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you to the committee for hearing me out. So to address this is to address a parking issue. My concern is removing 40% of our green space removes any front yard we have. There is a requirement through the county that the developer's enforcing that we have 1 tree per semi. There is no space to plant these trees now. So the developer is now holding us to a timeline to get these trees in while he widens the driveways. We had homeowners widen driveways prior to closing of homes, and he had us bring them back to a single car. So we don't feel that this is a good solution to the problem. I live on 10 Amber. I now can't park in front of my house or across the street. There is no parking for me. It was not made privy. But again, I think there are other viable solutions like using the lot as a public parking. I feel it shouldn't be on the homeowner's responsibility to resolve this issue. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan Jenkins, I live at 10 Amber Street.
Okay, any other questions from committee members? Okay, I'm just going to mention before we vote and make a decision that if you are not happy with the decision, you do have the right to appeal. And we have before us a recommendation from staff for approval. Do I have a member of the committee wishing to move that recommendation?
I would tend to move a deferral to see if some of these items can be ironed out that are a little bit beyond the scope of this application. And that would be my motion.
Okay, so okay, and Adam seconds it. Alan, Adam. Okay, all in favor of a deferral. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
And the committee members present. Okay, so that application is deferred.
And I would just encourage that the homeowners engage with the developer and the county and try to come up with some solutions before they come back.
Okay, the next application is for minor variance, file number ANPL 2022012. And the applicant is John Siemens, and I'll ask staff to give that report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct approximately an 18 by 12 meter accessory building requiring relief of 72 square meters from the maximum permitted usable floor area of 200 square meters to facilitate the use of a garage. The subject lands are located north of the intersection of 10th Concession Road and Norfolk County Road 23. They are occupied by a single detached dwelling, a garage, and a trailer. The lands are within the 120 meter adjacency buffer of a provincially significant wetland, therefore falling under the LPRCA's regulatory boundaries, and also have some portions which intersect significant woodlands. They are designated and zoned agricultural. And evaluating the proposed location in relation to these natural heritage system features, as well as reviewing comments from the LPRCA and Forestry Operations Division, it's the opinion of staff that there will be no negative impacts on the natural features, their ecological functions, and have concluded that the proposal meets the 4 tests of minor variance and recommend that it be approved. I'm here for questions. Thank you.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Okay, Marcel moves for approval. Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding the application? Okay. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Marcella Caro. I'm acting as agent for my husband, who's shyer than I am. We are applying for a minor variance permitted because what is permitted in the allotted dimensions is not quite large enough for the purposes of the building that we want. That's all. Thank you. Marcella Caro. If you have any questions, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seconded by Adam. All in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and the committee members present. Okay, that application is approved. Now let's just do the committee members, anyone want to take a 5-minute break or keep going? Keep going? Okay,
Yes, please.
next. Okay. Next application is for a minor variance, file number ANPL 2022088. It's Carly and Matthew Woodhead. And I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a new accessory residential dwelling unit requiring relief of 15 square meters from the maximum usable floor area of 100 square meters for accessory structures, and 1.99 meters of relief from the minimum interior side yard setback of 3.3 meters to permit interior side yard setback of 1.31 meters. The subject lands are approximately 0.63 acres with frontage on Wyndham Road 19. They are occupied by a single detached dwelling and fenced backyard. Abutting the subject lands to the northeast are residential lots, and to the south are agricultural areas. Staff have reviewed the proposal and discussed reasons for the placement with the agent and are satisfied with its location based on their justification on the lot. However, during circulation stage, it was determined that the public was not notified of all items of relief. In this case, it's occupation of the front yard. So staff are recommending deferral to fulfill their obligations for section 45(5) of the Planning Act regarding public notification. Thank you. I'm available for comment.
Thank you. Any questions for planning staff? No. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, we have a motion or staff are recommending deferral. Could I have a committee member move that?
Almost.
Okay, I got Alan and the seconder, Adam. All in favor of deferral. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and the committee members show of hands. Okay, that application is deferred. Next application is file number ANPL 2022101 for a minor variance. And it's Elizabeth and Giuseppe Demazio. And I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct approximately a 7.6 by 9.14 meter accessory residential dwelling unit requiring relief of 1.93 meters, the maximum permitted height of 5 meters, 1.8 meters, the minimum interior side yard setback of 3.3 meters, and relief of 74.9 square meters, the maximum permitted usable floor area of 55 square meters for an accessory structure to permit of 124.9 square meters. They're located in Port Dover, approximately 890 square meters with frontage on St. Patrick's Street. They're occupied by a single family dwelling, detached garage and shed, and the detached garage and shed are proposed to be removed. Staff have evaluated the subject application, determined it meets the remaining provisions for ADUs and accessory structures, and are of the opinion that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, given unique site-specific conditions for size and urban area. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for planning staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, we have a recommendation for approval. Can I have a committee member move that? I got Adam, a seconder. Got Marcel. All in favor of approval. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and the committee members. Approved. Next application is a boundary adjustment BNPL 2022102, and the applicants are Scott and Laura Haviland. And I'll ask staff to give that report.
Thank you, through the chair. Try to keep this one quick. So an application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of approximately 48 meters, width of 27 meters, and a regular depth of about 27 to 50 meters, and having an area of 2,171 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area of roughly 48 acres as the severance of a dwelling made surplus through farm amalgamation. They are located south of the intersection of Cockship Road and Concession to Townsend. The lands to be severed are occupied by a single detached dwelling, which is serviced by a cistern, and the lands to be retained are occupied by a small shed and accessory structure identified as a sugar shack. So the main kind of concerns with this proposal is on site inspection, we received an OSSD form which mentioned that the on top of the septic is grass area. But when we did a site inspection and kind of did some measurements, we found that it would have intersected with an area of active cultivation. So most of our concerns are relating to whether the septic system would be viable given the impact of heavy machinery related to cash crops on the system itself. We kind of talked through it with building and learned a lot about septic systems. And then because of the orientation or configuration of the lot, I would essentially take active agricultural land out of production and create maybe some difficulty for farm machinery to move just by the way it's shaped. I have discussed with the owner, and I think he should be here to present some concerns or considerations for why he thinks it shouldn't be deferred. So we're happy to work with them. We have I have an alternative lot configuration proposed in the report, which would necessitate the movement of a septic system. So we leave the decision with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for planning staff? Marcel?
Did the owner agree to do something, or are we just deferring this and still be an issue, or is he willing to do something right away?
So I don't want to speak on behalf of the owner if he's not present, but I think there was a sense of disagreement in the ability to move the septic system, and he has some, justification against the points I've made in report. So I'm recommending deferral because I'm always happy to work, but I'll leave it to the decision of the committee.
Okay. Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, so Marcel moves for deferral. Can I have a seconder? Adam?
Rudy,
I got Adam. And all in favor of deferral? Rudy?
yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, and show of hands. Okay, that application is deferred. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Chair, no, I just had a question. If all the people are here for the same application, could we move it up on the agenda? Because I think they're, it's just a suggestion. I know that there's like a few people here to speak to it. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if it's something we can do. I don't know if the agent online is okay with that, but throwing it out there only because I know there's a bunch of people here for the same application. It's application. I think I don't want to speak for everybody. So if someone's here not for 51 Woodhouse, all 51 Woodhouse, so they're all here for application for 5.20 ANPL 2022.
Okay. Is the committee all in agreement of moving that up?
Agent is online, I believe.
Is the agent online?
Yes, he is.
Sorry, just a recommendation from staff if nobody else is here for any other applications. So.
Okay. All right. So just let me pull that one out here. Okay, so the next application, excuse me, is file number ANPL 2022114. The applicant is John Dertinger and Catherine McCall, and it's for 51 Woodhouse in Port Dover. And I'll ask staff to give that report.
Thank you, Chair, for humoring me and moving it up as well. So Get organized. So we have received, an application has been received to construct a new dwelling requiring relief of 1.8 meters from the minimum rear yard setback of 3 meters to permit a decreased rear yard setback of 1.2 meters and 6.3 meters from the required interior side yard setback right of 7.5 meters to permit a setback of 1.2 meters. So the application is in Port Dover. It's along Woodhouse Ave, and it abuts the Lake Erie. The surrounding context is residential. There is a little bit of a history on this property, and there has been a previous zoning amendment that added special provision. And I don't want to get this wrong. Special provision 14.584, which required, because of the orientation of the lot at the time of the rezoning, and because of our definitions of which lot line would be considered a rear lot line and a side lot line, special provisions were added to address that, to try to guide development moving forward to ensure that it was consistent with the neighborhood. So that special provision to the R1A zone required an interior side yard on the right side to be 7.5 meters, a minimum rear yard of 3 meters, and then it set the requirement from the top of bank to 10 meters. So through reviewing the planning report that was prepared for the previous zoning application, it was staff's opinion at the time that based on the orientation of the lot, that this portion of the lot, if you can see my cursor, was anticipated to sort of become or be used as a backyard to the property because of the restrictions towards Lake Erie and the top of bank requirements. It wouldn't really function as a rear yard. So they, for some amenity space, added the 7.5 meter from this property line in, just to ensure that there was amenity space provided for the parcel. And in doing so, because of our definitions in the zoning bylaw, this property line, I don't know, again, if you can see my cursor, because the front property line is along Woodhouse Avenue, this, because it's directly across from the front property line, becomes the rear property line. But again, in the assessment of staff back in the day, because of the orientation, their consideration for applying the 3 meter setback to the rear yard was because it was going to act as a side yard. So they thought that a reduction there made sense in this capacity. So in doing so, the applicant has requested relief of the rear yard to accommodate a garage and the house that they want to build on the property. Based on the building envelope that has been provided, which you can see on the screen, planning staff are concerned that the original intent of the zoning bylaw that was approved to apply the special provisions on the property, or the intent is not being met. We do believe that the minor variance, particularly for the rear yard, is not minor in nature. And we are recommending refusal of the application. The Conservation Authority did note some concerns about the top of bank location as well. Staff note that a minor variance has not been requested for the top of bank calculation or setback, and that a permit from the Conservation Authority will be required to build the house. So any kind of discrepancy in that location will be worked out through their permitting process. Staff have received a lot of correspondence from the public, and as you can see, we do have people who are here in attendance who would wish to speak to the application. So I won't go into detail, but because they are here to speak to it, but we have received a number of emails in this regard. We forwarded it to the applicant. And I guess I can leave it there unless there's any questions or if anything comes up through the public comments. And I know the applicant's agent is on the line as well for any questions. Oh, sorry, I thought I said that. Sorry, staff are recommending refusal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we hear from the agent, I'm just going to ask the committee, do we have any questions for planning staff? Hey, Adam?
Yeah, you mentioned that there's been, obviously there's lots. What is the nature of the correspondence? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. So the nature of the correspondence has been that the requested relief is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood. There are a number of points, but that seems to be the number one concern from the neighbors. There were also some concerns noted about the top of bank calculation and how and where the house or deck or building envelope is shown. So there are some concerns about that as well. There were some concerns about our 60-meter buffer and who's been notified, although I've confirmed with our GIS department that our standard 60-meter buffer has been applied. We have a mailing list of who's been contacted, so that has been raised at 60 for minor variances. So I guess some people are of the opinion that they should have received notice of the application. But again, we have documentation for the mailing list in that regard. And I hope I didn't miss any big points, but those seem to be, we did receive comments directly from the next door neighbor as well, and they are concerned, and the biggest concern from them is the top of bank calculation. It would appear they're also concerned about the character of the neighborhood. I don't want to do anybody injustice for speaking on their behalf, but that's what I think I've received so far.
Thank you.
I was just saying, so I just wanted to summarize that the general tone is not in favor.
That's sorry. Yes, sorry. It's been a long day. Yes, no, they are definitely opposed to the application for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for?
Can you just go back to the slide that shows the building envelope? So the terminology rear yard, side yard is kind of up for discussion here. So the rear yard is the top of the lot, I guess. Is that what they're calling the rear yard?
So the rear yard in this context, based on our definitions, is actually the side yard. So it's actually this one here. Yeah, based on our definition, the rear yard is the lot line opposite the front property line. So because the lot is like an L configuration, based on our definitions, that's the rear lot line. All of the other lot lines are considered interior side yards. So that's why they've applied interior, and to make it clear, right is 7.5 meters, was to try to accommodate for a standard rear yard setback.
Okay, I'm just going to ask if the agent has anything to add, and I'm going to also ask that you please keep it short.
I do have some prepared comments. I'm not sure I can keep it short though. But in my mind, this is a very simple application that has got completely misunderstood by the neighbors because of a misunderstanding of terms. The term I used in my application was that of a building envelope, which is merely a plot of the setback lines. But it seems clear that this has been construed as the building footprint and has caused great consternation amongst the neighbors. The only real relief that I've sought here is that along the north side yard, and that is, and I'm just trying to bring that side yard minimum requirement in line with all other residentially zoned properties in Norfolk County and in Port Dover in particular. The normal side yard setback is 1.2 meters, and that's all we're asking for here. Please treat this lot the same as any other residential lot in Port Dover or in Norfolk County for that matter. When this lot was created, Special Provision 14-584 required a right-hand side yard setback of 7.5 meters. The premise for that, as Jennifer's already said, was to provide amenity space in what was visualized to be the rear yard. My client, though, wants to locate his attached garage in that space, And because he owns waterfront property, the amenity space will all be on the lake side, as he proposes quite a large deck overlooking the lake, on which him and his wife would enjoy the Lake Erie vista. The special provision also required a 3-meter rear yard in order to provide access for construction or maintenance equipment to maintain the seawall. And that's all contained within the staff report of that special provision. So what we're asking for is to just switch 1 yard for the other. We're not asking for a reduction in those 2 yards. We're just asking for a switch because it works out, if you're on site, that 3-meter setback on the south as you approach from Woodhouse, and then on the east as you turn towards the lake, that connects directly with access that already exists directly down to the seawall. And that would make it much easier and much more practical if heavy equipment had to access the top of bank or the bottom of bank, for that matter, at the seawall location for maintenance purposes. And so all we're asking there is to switch one side for the other. We're not looking for a reduction there. When the original property was subdivided from 1 lot into 3 lots, both the county and LPRCA requested a setback from top of bank of 7.5 meters. However, the developer at that time voluntarily had it increased from 7.5 to 10 meters, and we're complying with that. And that is contained within the special provision 14,584. That 10-meter setback is there, and we're complying with that, and we don't argue with that. So the requested relief, therefore, in my mind, complies with the Norfolk County official plan, because the official plan designates this property residentially, and the OP permits a single-family dwelling on this lot, and therefore it's in compliance. It also complies with the zoning bylaw in that the subject property is zoned R1A. The R1A zone permits a single-family dwelling. It's also desirable and appropriate in the neighborhood because properties to the north, east, and west have all been developed as residential units. And therefore this property or this proposal will blend in perfectly with the existing streetscape. The application is also minor in that the proposed house is the same size as the average house in the neighborhood. The architectural design is incomplete at this time because we want to give the architect freedom of expression to make maximum use of the Lake Erie vista in how he orientates the house within the proposed envelope. But the envelope is merely an outline of permitted setbacks. It's not a footprint of the house. The footprint of the house is going to be roughly the same size as the Hamilton house right across the road at 54 Woodhouse. And it will also be right in line with the McLaren house, which is right beside this lot, or was one of the severed lots. Actually, it would be smaller than the Hamilton house, but almost exactly the same size as the house directly to the north, the Keefe and Dyer house. So that's the size of the house we're talking about, not some huge monster. It'll only be about half the size of the Shabatura house, which is directly to the west, the neighboring house to the west. Yeah, where the cursor is there now, the proposed house will be half that size and more in line with the house directly to the north, and will be in line with the McLaren house on Woodhouse. So that's what we're talking about, not some monster house that covers the entire envelope. That envelope is merely an expression of setbacks within which the building would be located. And because we've switched the amenity space from the northerly side of the property to the southerly side of the property to take advantage of the lake view, we've complied with the intent of the original amendment, and which was to provide amenity space. So given that the proposed house size is not the size of the envelope, this should allay the concerns of the neighbors that have been expressed in all these emails that have come in. And I've given you a size of the house, which is basically the same size as the house directly to the north. And the deck would be roughly the same size as the Shabatura patio, which runs almost to top of bank. We've provided access to the seawall for maintenance. We've provided emergency access to Woodhouse Street. Reference in some of the emails have been made to the top of bank and some failures that have occurred on the next street over on Martin Ave. However, this property was investigated by Peter McCallum. They're highly respected geotechnical engineers. They advanced boreholes on this property and on the McLaren property, found no evidence of groundwater, no evidence of seepage, and no evidence of bank, top of bank slippage. Piezometers were left in place for some time, and no evidence of water ever accumulated in any of the piezometers. So finally, let me just say that this proposal complies with the official plan. It complies with the zoning bylaw. It complies with the report prepared by Peter McCallum. It complies with the special provisions, other than we want to switch the amenity space from one side to the other. And we want to switch one side yard with the other. That's all we're doing. The owners want to be able to drive straight in from Woodhouse into their garage rather than having to make any bends, because the configuration of the lot is rather narrow. So they want to be able to drive straight in. And they also want to create an accessible entrance off of Woodhouse directly into the house.
Okay, Dave, I'm gonna cut you off now. We've heard enough.
Let me just say one more sentence, if you don't mind. The house is going to be designed to be fully accessible, and the deck will be fully accessible to accommodate the owner's disabled wife. So all of these are considerations that have been taken into account when I plotted this out. And I still believe this is a very simple application, and I'm looking forward to a positive decision from the committee. Thank you.
Just one comment I will say, it was helpful to see your drawing where the actual house, deck, and garage are going to go, because the drawing attached to the report sort of was misleading or confusing, I guess. But thank you.
I guess it was confusing, and it got misconstrued by the neighborhood.
I'm just making a comment. We've heard it. We have to move on, but thank you. Okay. Any members of the public that wish to speak regarding the application? And I'm just going to say, before we start with the public comments, if you are going to speak, please don't talk about something we've already heard. Only bring new information up. And if you aren't happy with our decision, you do have the right to appeal. keep that in mind. And we're going to ask you to try and keep it short.
Yeah, I think,
And state your name for the record, please.
so, Madam Chair, thanks for the time. My name is Heaton Dyer. I'm one of the people that wrote in. I think before you have a coronary, I don't think we're all intending to speak.
Okay.
My intention, I just had one little page I wanted to read. I'm not even sure I will do that to the full extent, because I really, in listening to the agent, I'm struck by the fact that the agent has never tried to engage with any of us, and you can see by tonight's turnout, all we had to go on was they're building an Amazon warehouse beside us. It really was. This is basically occupying the entire street level footprint of that land, and so I'm disappointed that neither the agent nor the owners have actually tried to engage to explain anything to us. So forgive us for just taking in a whole bunch of information right there. So I'm going to try and not be repetitive. I do think the agent acknowledged the land collapse 150 meters across, where literally, there were 2 trees at the end of the street that are now in Lake Erie, 40 feet below. The idea of a very large property that close to top of bank is concerning, especially concerning to some of the neighbors. As was mentioned in the county report, this is R1A residential zoning. The agent made reference to a property that is in the condo development next door, which is not R1A residential zoning. The fundamental point is the proposal is completely out of character with the other residences on Woodhouse Avenue. And as I say, all we've had to go on is this footprint that, if it was still up there, I don't know if you can go back to the footprint, but the footprint is literally virtually the entire space. One point that I know somebody in our group wants to make is that the top of bank setback for this is 10 meters. All of the other properties on the waterfront are actually at 15 meters. So it's already encroaching further forward, and I don't know to what degree that is a important consideration also for the county. I mean, fundamentally, I know you want me to say this, which is fundamentally, we agree strongly with the findings of the county. We appreciate the work that was done. We appreciate all of the considerations. We do wish we had more of this new information before this late moment, but regardless of that information, I don't think it has changed our fundamental concerns that what is being proposed. I'll use one, and I promise I'll wrap with this. A key point that the agent made was he is seeking this relief to give the architects maximum flexibility to put it bluntly, do whatever they want with that footprint. That obviously is a big concern for us as neighbours. So I know you would like me to shut up, so I will respect that. And thank you. You can see the turnout we've had, and this has been because of the conversations and concerns that we've had. So I really appreciate this committee for listening to us and taking this into account.
Okay, thank you.
Turn off the microphone.
Do you have to call anybody else, or can we make this?
No, I have to let everyone speak that wishes to speak. So is there anyone else that wishes to speak regarding this application?
Can I make a point of clarification? I still believe that there's a misunderstanding between building footprint and building envelope, and that was just expressed by the last person at the microphone. And I've made it clear that the proposed house is basically the same size as his house. So okay. This is not a monster home by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And I think that's been made clear by the drawing that you actually put up.
Okay.
It was confusing to me as well in the report or the circulation. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. So staff are recommending refusal. And any discussion from the committee members, or Adam's ready to make a
Well,
recommendation?
so my question is to staff, does this change anything from your point of view?
Through the chair. I've been pushing the agent to try to give us the building footprint versus the building envelope, because as you can tell by my report, I was also extremely concerned with what was shown on the drawing. My recommendation has been to the agent that he work with his client and an architect to come up with a basic design for the property first, so that we can actually, show the footprint of the proposed building on a drawing like the one that has been submitted, because it does help illustrate exactly what the intent is of the minor variance. In this particular case, because of the lot configuration, to do just a blanket approval for a reduction of that interior side yard from 7.5 meters to 1.2 meters is quite severe, especially because of the proposal, we haven't clarified that it's to permit the 3-car garage. So theoretically, if this lot, let's say something were to happen to the owners and they sold the lot and this minor variance was approved on the property, somebody else could come in with that minor variance and actually build
The entire.
building envelope. So I can appreciate the agent's intent by showing the building envelope, but I think in this particular case, it doesn't necessarily help the application. And I think with an additional information, with even just the sketch that that he provided that I'm sharing now on the screen, it, like you said, it definitely helps clarify what the intent of the application is and the intent of what the applicants are wanting. That also being said, I'm not entirely sure as to why we have to switch where the 3 meters is required. If 3 meters is being provided on one side of the property versus the other side, I don't understand why the house just can't shift to meet those requirements, so that the only variance that they would be requesting would be potentially for the garage. So there are some things that I wouldn't mind working out with the applicant. So to answer your question, this helps, but I don't know if it answers and satisfies all of planning staff's concerns regarding the minor variance application.
So would you prefer, are you still moving for a refusal, or would you prefer a deferral as well? Or what's appropriate, how your preference, what is the way to go there?
I think based on the application as submitted, we would be saying refusal. In the spirit of working with the applicant and working with the neighbors, I don't think that a deferral would be completely out of line in this particular case. I leave it up to the applicant if they're also willing to work with us to kind of refine their application. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the committee to make the decision. But planning staff is always willing to work with the applicants. And we would be doing that in this case as well.
Okay. And just one comment I have too with regarding the deferral, that makes sense to me because the Long Point Region Conservation Authority was not supportive as it stands either. And so if they could come back with something that the Conservation Authority supports and staff have a better sense of what's actually going to happen on the property, that would be helpful. So that being said, we have a recommendation for refusal. Committee member want to make a recommendation for?
I'd move a deferral to just do this with the neighbors to sort things out a little better and have a better outcome for everybody, just as far as even peace in the neighborhood.
Okay, and Alan seconds that. Okay, all in favor of deferral? Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and show of hands. So that application's deferred. Next application is file number ANPL 2022105. It's for a minor variance, and the applicants are Joanne and Helena Gunther. And I'll staff to give that report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct approximately a 13.7 by 18.3 accessory building Requiring relief of 99 square meters to the maximum permitted usable floor area of 200 square meters in the agricultural area. The subject lands are approximately 5 acres with 167 meters of frontage on West Quarterline Road. They are occupied by a single detached dwelling, 3 sheds, and a chicken coop. They are designated in zone agriculture and some sections of provincially significant wetland. There are also areas of significant woodlands as identified in the official plan, which kind of thin towards the road or the frontage. The proposed development will not take place in any lands within natural heritage features, however, will be in lands adjacent to that PSW. Through review and coordination with the LPRCA, staff are satisfied that there will be no negative impacts to the natural features on site. I believe this proposal meets the 4 tests for minor variance and recommend that it be approved. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for planning staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Not, I'll ask a member of the committee to approve or make a motion to approve. Adam, a seconder. Marcel. Hey, all in favor of approval. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and committee, show of hands, that application's approved. Next application is file number ANPL 2022106. Daniel Wigmore is the applicant, and that's for a minor variance.
Johan Gunther.
Is now exiting.
Yeah, staff to give the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct approximately 10.6 by 7.6 meter accessory structure, requiring relief of 3 meters from the required exterior side yard setback of 6 meters and 44 square meters of the maximum permitted usable floor area of 55 square meters for the, I believe it's the R1 zone. So the subject lands are located on a corner, so King Lane and Union Street in Simcoe. They're approximately 1,535 square meters with 28 meters of frontage on Union Street. They are occupied by a single family dwelling, detached garage, which measures approximately 23 square meters. And there's also a mature spirea hedge, which runs parallel to King Lane. So I reviewed the application. I don't have any concerns with it meeting the 4 tests of a minor variance, but circulation determined that the public wasn't notified of the correct amount of relief required. In this case, it is usable floor area. So we're recommending deferral to fulfill our statutory notice requirements in accordance with section 45(5) of the Planning Act. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Staff are recommending deferral. Can I have a motion from the committee? Okay, I got Alan, seconder. Marcel? Okay, all in favor. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and a show of hands for those present. So that application is deferred. Next application is for a minor variance. It's ANPL 2022109, and it's Louis Brzezowski. And I'll ask staff to give the report.
Thank you. Through the chairs, the subject lands are an irregularly shaped lot located south of the intersection of St. Anne Street South and Black Creek Lane, abutting the Lynn River and Port Dover. They're approximately 1,295 square meters with approximately 19 meters of frontage on St. Anne Street South. There's a steep slope downwards from St. Anne Street towards the river, and the lands are occupied by a single detached dwelling, a shed, and a gazebo of the subject application. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So this application is a bit unique in that the LPRCA concluded in their comment that it does not meet section 3.1 of the PPS, but have also granted a permit. So we kind of worked with them to parse out the reasons for why this happened. They've stated they have no objection to a minor variance to permit the gazebo as it is located near the bottom of the slope, does not diminish maintenance access to the existing protection works, and concluded the gazebo will not negatively affect slope stability and access to shoreline protection is maintained. So with that said, staff are tasked with evaluating whether this meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, trying to be as consistent as possible when considering similar applications to meet new accessory structures to non-conforming uses in hazard lands. I'm of the opinion that regarding the official plan, the gazebo does not constitute major expansion. Sorry, I'll just note that we did receive a comment from a member of the public. I'm just pulling it up. If you can bear with me one moment, please. It was submitted on June 12th from Margaret Creighton, who's the secretary of the Port Dover Waterfront Preservation Association. It's, in summary, it's a concern that the accessory structure for residential purposes is being considered in the hazard land zone. And it states it's incumbent, on Norfolk County, but also the LPRC and MNRF to respect the latest floodplain mapping and make decisions on development accordingly. And it's therefore the association's request that any consideration for relief from Section 11 of the Norfolk County zoning bylaw, which in this case is hazard lands, be given judicious examination, which I definitely appreciate. I did give Margaret a call and an email, and we kind of discussed in length the kind of uniqueness of this context. I don't know if she is available for comment on this application. But sorry, with that said, the designation is urban waterfront. The zone designation is urban waterfront and urban residential. The zone is R1A and hazard lands. We are trying to be consistent in how we look at these accessory structures. And essentially, we're of the opinion that it does meet the 4 tests and recommend approval. And if you have any questions about, the policies therein, happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for planning staff? Is there any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, staff are recommending approval. Could I have a member of the committee move that? Okay, I've got Alan and a seconder, Adam. All in favor of approval. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and show of hands from the committee. That application's approved. Next application is for minor variance ANPL 2022110, and it's Annie Froese. Okay, and I'll stop to give that report.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application is received to construct a roughly 12 by 12 accessory structure requiring 1 meter from the maximum height of an accessory building of 6 meters. We have seen this application before in a previous minor variance, ANPL 2022-393, which is approved in the past for usable floor area. This was just something that the agent and owner missed. Staff have evaluated such an application and are of the opinion it meets the 4 test of a minor variance and recommend that it be approved. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for planning staff? Okay, any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, staff are recommending approval. Could I have a member of the committee move that? Okay, I got
Lisa.
Adam.
Second for Lisa?
Lisa, you want a second, Lisa?
Yes, please.
Okay, Lisa, second that. All in favor, Lisa,
Yes.
Marcel, and a show of hands for the committee. Okay, that's approved. Next application is file number ANPL 2022112 for minor variance, and the applicant is Paul Thomas White. I have to get that.
Update your wardrobe for a fresh new look this spring at Carter's Men's and Ladies Wear. Carter's is your source for gorgeous new spring.
Yes. Mute.
This spring, visit Carter's Men's and Ladies Wear.
Hear it again.
Oak Street South in Simcoe.
See Carter, dress smarter.
Anna Froese.
Is now exiting.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a roughly 7 meter by 6.7 meter.
Your lighting is on sale from 20 to 80%.
Sorry, an application has been received to construct a cottage. Sorry, I think I have my notes mixed up. Reconstruct an existing vacation dwelling requiring relief of 21% from the maximum permitted lot coverage of 15% to permit a coverage of 41% and 8.75 meters from the minimum rear yard setback of 9 meters to permit a decreased rear yard setback of 0.2 meters. So these lands are located in the resort area of Long Point, near the intersection of Rogers Avenue and Old Cut Boulevard. The subject lands are occupied by a vacation dwelling, resulting currently in a lot coverage of approximately 20% as provided by the applicant. These lands are a little bit unique in that the abutting lot to the south known through its municipal civic address as 15 Lighthouse Crescent, abuts the canal and is owned by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Apologies, the acronym is not correct. The parcel is leased by the owner of 11 Rogers Avenue in addition to other multiple owners. So the owner of 11 Rogers Avenue has a deck and a boathouse on a portion of this 15 Lighthouse Crescent directly south of their lot. To kind of keep this as short as possible, we are of the opinion that it doesn't meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. We kind of I reviewed the resort residential designation, Lakeshore Special Policy Secondary Plan. A key item from that plan discusses the resort area community design guidelines, and it suggests that replacement buildings occupying the approximate footprint of the existing cottage reflect the average cottage size, that a maintenance of a rear yard setback of 9 meters be maintained, and then a standard 15% lot coverage for vacation dwelling should be maintained, with a maximum of 30% lot coverage may be considered for lots along canals. So this is a canal lot. It does provide a little bit of flexibility, but does essentially mirror what is the zoning bylaw. And the reasons for that is it protects important uses such as stormwater management, lot grading, amenity space, and so on and so forth. So another thing I would just bring up is that during the circulation stage, the zoning administrator determined that the balcony, which is part of the proposed cottage, will encroach on these leased lands, and that the lot coverage calculation appears to incorporate the leased area as well as 11 Rogers Avenue. So therefore, that 41% lot coverage doesn't represent what might be the actual amount of relief required, and the rear yard setback doesn't acknowledge this kind of potential encroachment. So through discussion with the agent, staff have learned that the owner is potentially interested in purchasing a portion of the leased land. But if the proposed size of the cottage doesn't change, then the concerns I've outlined above kind of stay the same. Essentially, if they don't purchase the land, it's either 41%, or if they do purchase the land, 41% or above for lot coverage. Sorry if that didn't make sense. So with that said, we're always happy to work with the applicant to find ways to reduce the lot coverage and address the encroachment through a deferral, but if no deferral, then we're recommending approval. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
Hey, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? No questions for staff. Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding the application, please do so.
Yes, Mike Ross, the applicant or the agent for the applicant. We wish to defer the applicant or the application until we redesign the cottage as well as purchase the boathouse property that owned by the anyway, the rest of the property, so it would increase the lot size.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So we are requesting a deferral, please.
Okay. Adam will move that, and I need a seconder. I got Marcel. All in favor of deferral. Lisa?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
And show of hands. Yes, that application is deferred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is for a minor variance. And this is Adam's conflict here, so he's going to leave the room. Michael Barber is the applicant, and it's file ANPL 2022113. And I'll staff to get the report.
Thank you. Last one for me.
Right.
Chair, and
Is now exiting.
an application has been received to construct approximately a 7.1 by 6.7 meter accessory structure, requiring relief of 43 square meters to the maximum permitted usable floor area of 55 square meters and 0.5% from the maximum permitted lot area of 10%. So as the subject lands are located west of the intersection of McNabb Street West and First Avenue in Port Dover. The area of the subject lands is approximately 0.23 acres with 20 meters of frontage on First Avenue. They are occupied by a single family dwelling, detached garage, shed, garden, and swimming pool. The detached garage has an existing encroachment onto an unopened roadway located on the rear of the subject lands. With all that said, we have evaluated the proposal and I have the opinion that it meets the 4 test of a minor variance and recommend approval. I'm here for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for planning staff? Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, staff are recommending approval, and I've got Alan and a seconder.
Lisa,
Oh, sorry, I got Marcel. All in favor, Lisa?
you betcha.
Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, and a show of hands, so that application is approved. Next application is file number ANPL 2022123, and it's Michael Jansen, and it's for a minor variance, and staff can give the report.
Thank you. I thought this was Anna, but it's me. So an application has been received to construct an addition to an existing single detached dwelling requiring relief of 3.2 meters from the minimum front yard setback of 13 meters to permit a decreased front yard setback of 9.8 meters in the agricultural zone. So you can see, so on the subject lands, there is an existing single detached dwelling. There's a barn and a greenhouse. The applicants are proposing an addition to the, I guess, southeast side of the property of the house. And because of the orientation of the house and it's already on an angle, the addition is going to follow the same kind of building line from the front. So because it's on an angle, they require relief of the front yard to accommodate this small kind of triangular piece in the front. So staff have evaluated the policies of the official plan and the zoning bylaw and feel that this application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance within the Planning Act and recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions for planning staff? No? Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application?
I'm the applicant. Again, it's Dave McPherson, and right now I'm supporting the planner's recommendation.
Thank you. We have a recommendation for approval. Can I have someone move that? Okay, I've got Alan. Seconder? Adam? All in favor, Lisa? Lisa, are you there? Rudy?
Yes, sorry, my apologies.
Okay, and a show of hands, that application is approved. So the next application is file number ANPL 2022117. The applicant is Andrew Willis and Lisa Sherrington, and it's for a minor variance, and I'll ask staff to give that report.
Thank you. So through the chair, an application has been received to permit the construction of an accessory building requiring relief of 20 square meters from the maximum permitted usable floor area for accessory structures of 100 square meters to permit a maximum usable floor area of 120 square meters, and relief from section 3.2.1b of the zoning bylaw to permit an accessory structure in the front yard. So the subject lands are located, as mentioned by the chair, in Long Point. Staff have reviewed the relevant policies of the official plan and the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Secondary Plan design guideline and the zoning bylaw, and are confident that the proposal is consistent with all the policies. We are also of the opinion that this minor variance meets the 4 tests of the minor variance and are recommending.
Thank you. Any questions for planning staff? Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, we have a recommendation for approval. Can I have somebody move that?
Lisa?
Lisa, yay, Lisa. Okay, and a seconder. I got Alan. All in favor of approval, Rudy?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And a show of hands, and that's approved. Last but not least, our final application, minor variance, ANPL 2022118, and it's Daniel DeYoung, and I'll ask staff to give that report.
All right, final one. So an application has been received to construct a new dwelling in the hazard land zone requiring relief to permit a dwelling with a usable floor area of 150.5 square meters, so approximately 1,620 square feet. So the subject lands are in Port Dover, located along Lake Erie. There is an existing non-conforming house on the property. So after a review of the official plan policies, there is a policy in there that permits the reconstruction of a non-conforming use in the hazard land designation, but it limits the increase in size for that particular use to 50 square meters. So in working with the applicants, we were able to make sure that the increase in the size of the rebuild was within that parameter. So they are only increasing the size of the footprint by that 50 square meters. And that being said, staff are of the opinion that the minor variance again meets the 4 tests of minor variance because it is consistent with the official plan policies, zoning bylaw, and is appropriate for the proposed development. So we are recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions for planning staff? Any member of the public wishing to speak regarding this application? Okay, and staff are recommending approval. Could I have somebody move that recommendation? Got Adam and a seconder. Alan? Okay, all in favor. Rudy?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And a show of hands. Okay, that application is approved. And that completes that portion of our meeting. Is there any other business? No other business? Then I have before me a resolution that the committee adjourns and meets at the next regular session to be held Wednesday, July 20th. I have somebody move that. I got Adam and a seconder.
Lisa.
Got Lisa. All in favor of adjournment. Rudy?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And we are officially adjourned at 7:27 p.m.
Have a good night, all.
Hey, and it was great to be back in the chambers and see everybody. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, good.
Is now exiting.